Hi, I'm Darryn Farrugia and welcome. So in last week's video, I showed you a practice method to help you get your fills in time by using your left foot and relying on your left foot to keep time for the rest of our body. So in this week's video, I want to show you just an extension of what we did last week. So let's crack on. So the exercise last week used the left foot to step the hi-hat, if you want to use that terminology, through the fill. So basically what we were doing was this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So effectively all the hi-hat notes that we played were closed. Now there are a couple of things that we can do to kind of make this a little bit more interesting sonically and also just challenge our coordination a little further. So one of those things is this. We don't actually have to play the closed hi-hat through the fill. In fact, what I want to do is actually be able to splash that hi-hat throughout my fill. And so the exercise for this particular fill, which is going to start on beat 3, it's a 2-beat fill, the hi-hat's going to splash on 3 and 4 and. So the exercise is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's try that with our 2-beat fill from last week. 1, 2, 3, 4. A couple of things to check out here. Because I'm opening the hi-hat with my left foot, there's no need for me to play the hi-hat on beat 1 with my right hand if I'm closing it with my left foot. One of my all-time favorite drummers is Carlos Vega, and I've seen videos of Carlos playing where if he opens his hi-hat on the and of 4, he doesn't play beat 1 with his right hand when he closes the hi-hat with his left foot. This sort of thing. Whether he did that all the time, I'm not entirely sure, but it does actually help avoid any potential flam that may occur when you try to play your left foot and your right hand at the same time. That's a tricky one. So anyway, the other thing that we should think about here is often you'll hear a drummer starting to open the hi-hats leading into the fill to get a bit more anticipation going, a bit more anxiety, let's say, leading into the fill, create a bit of tension. That sort of thing would sound like this. Another exercise that you can practice is to open the hi-hat on the and of 2 with your right hand, then splash 3 and 4 and. The exercise itself, without the fill, would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're interested in the technique I'm using to splash the hi-hat with my left foot, I've basically stolen, let's say, the exact same technique that Steve Gadd uses. And you can see Steve Gadd demonstrating this on his up-close video. But what I'm doing here is I'm holding my hi-hats open and then just smacking my heel down on the plate. And I'm actually rocking the front of my foot upwards a little just so that I can open the hi-hats cleanly. So I really love the effect that this creates during a fill. It's the difference between what I would call a wet fill and a dry fill. I use the term wet and dry in relation to reverb. A sound that has no reverb is what we would call dry, and then once we add reverb, it becomes wet. So the same thing with the fill. If I play the fill with the closed hi-hat, 1, 2. Etc. That is actually going to sound different to having the hi-hat splashing through that. So let me give you side-by-side examples. Without splashing, with splashing. Another approach that you could practice once you feel confident that your fill is in time is what I call the Ricky Lawson approach to playing a fill. Ricky Lawson had this great approach to playing fills where he would open his hi-hat and then let the hi-hat sustain all the way through the fill. So let's say with this fill, I would play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and. So that's another way of using the hi-hat. So we've got 3 approaches here. We've got the tight, closed approach. We've got the approach where we are splashing the hi-hat, and then within that we can preempt the opening of the hi-hat with the right hand on the hi-hat just to build that tension leading into the hi-hat. And then the third approach is that Ricky Lawson approach where we just hit the hi-hat, let it sustain through the fill. I want to go into more detail with certain types of fills in future videos. So what I want you to do is, if you've watched last week's video as well, pick a few of your favorite fills. 1-beat fill, 2-beat fill, and a 4-beat fill, or a 1-bar fill if we're talking about 4/4. And get into this practice approach. What I want to do in some future videos is go into more detail about the fills themselves and how we get around the drum set and how we play fills with different hi-hat patterns and what we can do to fill those awkward gaps when we're leading into a fill and coming out of a fill. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and remember to hit the notification button so that you know when I've uploaded a video, which is every week. Hope you're all doing well in this crazy world at this crazy time in history, and happy practice. Just have fun, practice, and stay out of trouble. See you next week. Let me start that again.